everyone, I am the Barangoat, and it is that time of year again where we talk about decisions other people made that we don't really like that much. No, I'm not talking about politics. I'm of course talking about the bracket for BattleBots 2021-2022. 34 this time instead of 32. That's one of the many questions that people had regarding the decisions made by the selection committee, and today we're going to break that down, and then at the end of the video I'm going to go ahead and predict the bracket and predict the winner. Hopefully I do better than I did last time, because last year was very bad. Before we get started, I should probably tell you how I'm going to be dissecting the bracket and what I looked for when determining if a bot was correctly or incorrectly seeded. First thing, record, pretty standard. Second thing, strength of schedule. How strong were your opponents? What was the combined record of everyone you faced? And the third thing, how many opponents made the tournament? I mean, that's also kind of strength of schedule, but go with it. And also remember, this is just my opinion. This is just how I would have looked at things a little bit differently. You can have a different opinion, it's okay, but just know that you're wrong. We'll break this into different sections and go from there, so let's start with the top 6. We had Endgame, Ribbot, Whiplash, Sawblaze, Uppercut, and Rotator. Well, this already gets confusing because, as everyone knows by now, there's like 7 or 8 bots that were 2-0 that the selection committee said, you know what, we've seen enough, you're gonna be in the tournament anyway. And that has really complicated the discussion here, and it kind of starts early with this top 6. In fact, it'll go down a little deeper. The only bot that has lost in the top 13 is Sawblaze, and that probably would have been different if everyone got their third fight, but that's one little point that I think we should look at. Sawblaze getting the 4th seed, 2-1 record overall. His strength of schedule was 7-2. Now, the loss was a bit of a fluky loss against Endgame. It happened in less than 30 seconds and he got UDA'd, so that's probably why he's been given the 4th seed, because even though he's the only one with a loss, the method of the loss speaks volumes. So I'm okay with Sawblaze being 4. Endgame is the top seed. I don't think there's any question about him being top seed. There were a couple on Facebook, but I don't think those people know what they're talking about. The biggest question in the top 6 is, how did Ribbot get the 2nd seed with his strength of schedule? I'll admit too, it took some time for me to realize, wait, Ribbot's the 2nd seed? How? He didn't face anyone that difficult. Well, if you look at the strength of schedule for everyone in the top 6, Ribbot's is 4-4, with him beating the 2-1 Defender, the 0-2 Overhaul, and the 2-1 P1. In terms of the other bots here, his isn't that bad, to be honest. Sawblaze is good, 7-2, we know that. Whiplash, having only 2 fights, his strength of schedule was 3-3. Uppercut and Rotator came in at an even 2-4. So it's hard to argue that Ribbot doesn't deserve the 2nd seed. And I think the only reason I'm okay with him being the 2nd seed is because how many bots actually had 3 fights, won them all by knockout? Exactly, not many. And it would have been different again if everyone had a 3rd fight, but we can't really go off that too much. So I guess Ribbot, you can have the 2nd seed. I don't know who else I would have put there, to be honest. So yeah, the top 6, I don't think I have any complaints. I mean, there's 3 bots there that are 2-0. It feels so wrong, but all of those bots would probably have gotten a strong 3rd opponent, and some of them would have gotten wins, and they would have worked their way up there eventually. So let's just move on and go to the next 5. 7 through 11 goes like this. Blip is the 7th, Copperhead 8th, Glitch 9, Jackpot 10, Tantrum 11. This is the first section that I've sectioned off here where there's a little bit of movement and a little bit of conversation that needs to happen. For starters, how the hell is Blip 7th? Now don't get me wrong, I like Blip. Blip works. I like the team, they're nice. But his strength of schedule is 0-7. That's right, Blip's opponents never managed a single win this season. The 0-2 Rusty, 0-2 Overhaul. Lockjaw obviously had a bad season, but he still finished 0-3. None of Blip's opponents made it into the tournament. I get he's 3-0. I get Lockjaw having a worse year than normal, kind of messes up those stats a little bit, but I don't think Blip should get the 7th seed off of that. Especially if you look at the bots around him. Copperhead 2-0, Glitch 3-0. They didn't have good schedules either, to be fair, but at least somebody on their schedule was able to get a win. In Copperhead's case, he would have gotten a better 3rd opponent that would have propelled him up the table, so Blip's not looking good. Another big question mark I have in here is Tantrum being 11th. When it was announced, it looked wrong, it felt wrong, because it is wrong. Let me explain why. Tantrum's strength of schedule is 3 and 3. He beat the 2 and 1 Lucky, he beat the 1 and 2 Malice. Both were pretty damn good fights. He is the only bot in this mini section of 5 that I cropped out with a strength of schedule better than 1 win. So here's how I restructured those 5. I moved Tantrum up 4 spots to the 7th spot. Copperhead's gonna stay put. I have Glitch and Jackpot switching positions outright because the strength of schedule comparison, Jackpot's has less to go off of. He has a 3rd fight and he wins, assuming he wins, goes to 3-0 to match Glitch's record. Even if that bot is 1 and 2, he would have a better strength of schedule than Glitch. So let's swap them around. Jackpot goes up to the 9th, Glitch goes up to the 10th. Blip, I'm dropping you 4 spots to the 11th. You still get a good seed, but I mean, your strength of schedule is literally the worst thing here. All right, the next section, let's look at the rest of the top half. So we've got Shatter coming in at number 12. Hypershock was the 13th seed. Will doesn't dye his hair. Cobalt getting the 14th. Mad Catter getting the 15th. And Minotaur getting the 16th seed. This is where it gets really, really tricky. When it comes to strength of schedule in this section, Hypershock has the worst, with his strength of schedule being 0 and 5, hindered a little bit because he only had 2 fights, hindered a little bit because Lockjaw had a terrible season. So as I was looking at this and preparing the video, I thought, Mad Catter's got a strength of schedule of 4 and 4, Minotaur has a strength of schedule of 4 and 5, those are immediately better than Hypershock's, he should probably be below them. Cobalt also has a strength of schedule of 2 and 6, which isn't very good, but it's better than Hypershock's, right? Here's the kicker, and this is where this section was really tough for me to make a call. Shatter and Hypershock are 2 and 0, only having the 2 fights. The other 3, 2 and 1. Can you put a 2 and 0 bot below a 2 and 1 bot? I sat there for a long time deciding if it was right or wrong, and I decided, you know what, I think this doesn't make enough sense. So all 5 bots there are gonna stay in their positions. And I know that feels wrong, it really, really does. If I was to change it, Hypershock would be the lowest of those 5. I would put him at the 16th seed. He would have been one that needed a 3rd fight to help fine-tune where his seeding would have been. He would have been 16th though for me. Shatter, with that weak strength of schedule, he can be right in front of him in the 15th spot. Then I would have Minotaur and Mad Catter take their places, jumping Cobalt, who actually wouldn't move. I guess who would go up ahead? I guess you could say Mad Catter has a slightly better strength of schedule than Minotaur's. You're splitting hairs at that point. Now we get to look at the bottom half of the table. I have a lot of changes here. Some subtle, some not subtle. Some controversial, some not controversial. So bear with me, we've got a lot to break down and we're going to do it section by section. Let's look at the next 4 first. So 17th through 20 went Bloodsport as the 17th, Black Dragon 18th, Yeti as 19th, P1 as 20th. Couple subtle changes here based off the strength of schedule, because at this point, most of the bots we're going to talk about have a 2 and 1 record until we get to the play-in matches. So what really separates the bots here is the strength of schedule. Bloodsport's overall was 3 and 4. He lost to the 2 and 0 Whiplash, then beat 0 and 2 Sub-Zero and 1 and 2 Claw Viper. Black Dragons is a little bit better. He beat the 2 and 1 Ice Wave, lost to 2 and 0 Rotator, and beat the 1 and 2 Claw Viper. Couple points of comparison here. First off, in general, the strength of schedule for Black Dragon is a few better than Bloodsport. Not only that, they have one common opponent in Claw Viper, and only one of them got the knockout on Claw Viper, so let's do a straight swap for them. Yeti and P1 could probably also move around a little bit because their strength of schedules are different. Yeti's is 3 and 5, P1's is 5 and 3. P1's is weird though because, well, they're both weird, let me be honest. They both kind of had a gimme win. Yeti getting Pain Train, P1 getting Jaeger. Each of them, they got a tough last fight. It was just completely different. Ribbot 3-0 taking out P1, whereas Yeti had a close judge's decision victory against the 1 and 2 Scorpios. But, I mean, the numbers don't lie. P1's is better than Yeti. So Yeti's gonna drop down, but we have to get into the next section first before we talk about how far Yeti's gonna drop down. P1, I'll tell you right now, he's gonna stay in 20th for me. Let's look at the next 5 bots. So in 21st, we had Riptide, followed by Gigabyte at 22, Tombstone at 23, Witch Doctor at 24, Lucky at 25. So we've got Yeti from earlier, who I haven't seeded yet, plus all of these guys, literally everyone's moving spots, and here's why. Of the 5 bots I just named there, the strongest strength of schedule goes to Gigabyte, believe it or not. Strength of schedule of 5 and 2 after he lost to the 2-0 Uppercut, beat the 2-1 Captain Shredderator, and then beat the 1-1 Smee. Coming in next with the best strength of schedule of all the bots in that section is Lucky's at 4 and 4. I had to wait to make sure that this was going to be how I thought it was once Blade's win in the YouTube exclusive was confirmed. But yeah, Lucky's strength of schedule isn't too horrible. 2-0 Tantrum was the one bot that beat him. He beat the 1-2 Blade, he beat the 1-2 Mammoth. And it doesn't sound like much, but when you're comparing it to Witch Doctor's strength of schedule, the 2 wins Witch Doctor got were against the winless Duck, which we didn't know at the start of the season Duck was going to be bad, and then Rusty, a clear gimme fight. Tombstone's strength of schedule isn't much better than Witch Doctor's though. It comes in at 3 and 6 after he lost to the 2-1 Captain Shredderator and beat the 1-2 Mammoth and the 0-3 free shipping. Let's start by saying this. If you have a win against a winless bot, it doesn't sit very well with me. That is pretty bad. That's kind of why Blip dropped 4 spots earlier. 1 for every bot that didn't have a win that he fought, and 1 extra because f*** you. Riptide's strength of schedule is fairly average, came in at a 4 and 5. So there's a lot of moving and shaking that I think needs to be done around here. And remember, Yeti was included, right? So let's go through the extended section. Let's go back up to 17th. So my 17th would have been Black Dragon. 18th would have gone to Bloodsport. 19th, I'm moving Gigabyte 3 spots up and giving him the 19th seed. I think he just barely has the edge in strength of schedule over some of these opponents, as was evident by the numbers. P1 stays in 20th. 21st, I've given to Yeti. So he only moves down a couple of spots. His strength of schedule being 3 and 5 matches Witch Doctor's, slightly better than Tombstone's. And then Riptide's is the best of all of these remaining bots, but let's not forget, he got a fairly fortunate win against Huge by getting that shot that trapped Huge into the screws as his weapon died. Then Defender kicked his ass a little bit, and then he beat an 0-3 Duck. So Yeti goes into 21st for me. Riptide doesn't fall too much. I'm gonna give him the 22 seed, so he only drops 1 spot. 23rd, I've given to Lucky. I'm gonna move him above Tombstone and Witch Doctor. His strength of schedule is clearly better, and he didn't have as obvious give me wins, I feel like. Blade was still capable, and Mammoth at that point was 1-1, having come off a great win against Hijinks and the double knockout loss against Tombstone. So it's not horrible. He kind of got fed to the wolves, Mammoth, with 2 horizontal spinners. Tombstone and Witch Doctor are each going to drop 1 spot, so Tombstone goes to the 24th, Witch Doctor goes to the 25th. Witch Doctor especially is the frustrating one because it's Witch Doctor. Witch Doctor shouldn't have to get such gimme fights like Rusty. They could have fought so many other bots that would have improved the strength of schedule that could have allowed all of us critics to have justified a higher spot. Didn't work out that way, unfortunately. They decided to give it Rusty. Great job. So that's one cluster we've gotten through. Now it's time to go through a second one as we get to the bottom 7. Bottom 7 has Valkyrie as the 26th seed, Captain Shredderator 27th, Huge 28th, Hijinks 29th, Ice Wave 30th, 31st is the first play-in match between Hydra and Defender, and the 32nd seed will be the winner of Scorpios and Malice. Couple things to point out here. Defender is the only 2-in-1 bot that is in the play-in matches. The other thing to point out is there are some varying strength of schedules in this final section. Valkyrie, he's the first one I want to look at. Valkyrie's strength of schedule is 2 and 4. They lost to the 2-1 P1 in the opening fight and then got gimme wins against 0-1 Triple Crown and 0-2 Pardon My French. So here's my problem with Valkyrie and their seeding and the strength of schedule. 2 and 4 doesn't sound that bad, right? But it's partially because Triple Crown might have been too damaged to get any other fights, or they only came out for 1 fight. I don't know exactly the details with that. And then they got another win against a winless bot in Pardon My French, who also doesn't have a completed season. There are 3 fights missing in the strength of schedule that could easily take Valkyries to 5 and 4, or worse, 2 and 7. 2 and 7 would be terrible as a strength of schedule, especially compared to Captain Shredderator, 4 and 4, Huge, 4 and 5. Not too bad, right? You see what I'm getting at here, right? Basically what I'm trying to say is Valkyrie's going down. Another strength of schedule that is actually weaker than what Valkyrie's could be It's Hijinks. Hijinks finishing the season with a 2-1 record. The strength of schedule is a 1-7. They lost to the 1-2 Mammoth. Might I point out, the 1 in the 1-7 for Hijinks' strength of schedule is Mammoth beating them. That's a little interesting, ironic. Then they beat the 0-3 Kraken, the 0-2 Sub-Zero. Kraken had, well, a slightly worse year than normal because they don't often get a winning record, if ever. They're usually a 1-2 bot that then doesn't get into the tournament. But what we gotta go off what actually happened. We can't go off of what ifs. Lockjaw had a bad year, Kraken had a bad year, Hydra had a bad year. We know these bots' records. This is what actually happened. No what ifs. And the thing that happened is Hijinks had a 1-7 strength of schedule record. That's not very good at all. So we're gonna first go over how I reshuffled these bots, and then I'm gonna propose another idea for you, and you're going to take your pick on which of these ideas sounds a little bit better. Got it? Good. All right, let's go. The 26th seed I gave to Captain Shredderator. His strength of schedule of 4-4 is not bad compared to other bots here, despite having the gimme win against Jaeger, and despite making that look difficult. Come on, America, you can do better. In 27th, I'm putting Huge. He can go up one spot. His strength of schedule is slightly worse than Captain's because Captain Shredderator's opponents didn't all have a full season. In 28th is Ice Wave. I'm moving him 2 spots up. His strength of schedule is 3-5. It's okay. He's looked okay this year, and that's probably a big move putting him higher. I could see why people would be content with him being the 30th seed. I don't know where I stand with him. At the end of the day, it's not a horrible record. In 29th, I'm going to put Defender. Defender with a 2-1 record. As I may have mentioned earlier, I think, he's the only bot in the play-ins that had a 2-1 record. His strength of schedule came out to 6-3 after losing to the 3-0 Ribbot, then beating the 2-1 Riptide and the 1-2 Retrograde. He got away with it in the end there. Retrograde isn't a good opponent. His 1-win Retrograde came against Rampage, so if you want to look deeper into the strength of schedule, maybe it isn't the best. But again, what we got on paper is that Defender has a strength of schedule of 6-3. So maybe he didn't belong in the play-ins. In 30th, I'm going to put Valkyrie, dropping 4 spots because let's face it, 2 absolute gimme wins and a weak strength of schedule that if those 2 bots had more fights, I guarantee there would be more losses on Valkyrie's strength of schedule record. So Valkyrie is taking a significant hit. In 31st, we'll keep Hydra in the play-in match, but we're gonna feed him Hijinks instead. Hijinks, as I mentioned, that is a terrible strength of schedule. It almost doesn't get worse than that. Blip. And let's face it, with all of the records and everything, there has to be a 2-1 in there, so it might as well be one that's skated by to 2-1. And then taking up the play-in spots in the 32nd seed, I will keep Scorpios and Malice because they both had tough strength of schedules too. Scorpios came in at 5-3, Malice came in at 5-2. They did put on a show too in some of their losses. They're tough bots, and I'm glad that this play-in match is a thing because they're 2 good bots that it would have been harsh to have them miss out on the season. Right? So that is one way I would have finished seeding the bracket, but there is another consideration that I have for you guys. It's gonna be bold, but bear with me on this. Let me first start off by saying that when it came to making the bracket, I can see why the play-in matches were brought up in the first place. 31 bots had a winning record. So how can you fairly give the 32nd seed to a random choice of a 1-2 bot? So they created the play-in matches to get 2 more in there to make it seem like, you know, hey, this is what we're trying to be fair here. I get it. That's not a bad idea. So my bold suggestion to you guys that I want you to consider is, what if you left out a couple bots with a winning record? Now, what if I told you there are 2 bots with a 1-2 fight record with a strength of schedule better than Valkyrie and Hijinks that missed out on the tournament? See, what y'all don't know is I did a little extra digging this year in preparation for this video, and I wrote down the records and strength of schedule and all of the stats for the bots that missed out on the tournament that may have the strongest case to get in. And here's what I came up with. I only wrote down bots that got wins, by the way. So it was Blacksmith, Blade, Claw Viper, Deep Six, Fusion, Gruff, Mammoth, Retrograde, Switchback. All of them finished at 1-2. 2 bots out of that field have decent strength of schedules, better than bots that got in, and you could argue deserve to be in the tournament. And those bots are, with a 6-2 strength of schedule, Fusion. And with a 6-3 strength of schedule, Mammoth. That's right, they had pretty strong strength of schedules. Now, hold your horses. I know Mammoth has probably got a lot of damage accumulated over this season after, a little bit on Hijinks, a lot on Tombstone, finding more against Lucky that they might not have even known about. Are they down a frame? Probably. But still, to have a strength of schedule where you beat a 2-1 Hijinks and then lose to two 2-1 bots, all of those bots made the tournament. Tombstone, Lucky, Hijinks. Mammoth has a pretty strong strength of schedule. It's also interesting considering Mammoth beat Hijinks. I know the records don't match. I know Hijinks has a better record, but Mammoth got fed some tough opponents, did he not? Tombstone. He got fed Tombstone. That's almost unfair. I would argue Mammoth deserves to be in the tournament more than Hijinks. Slightly. It's very, very close. The kicker is the fact that he beat Hijinks, to be honest. But of course, it would be wrong to just exclude 2-1 Hijinks from the tournament if every other bot with a winning record gets in, right? So how about we take out Valkyrie and replace him with Fusion? Hang on, don't go to the comments and yell at me yet. I told you this was bold for a reason. Just stay with me real quick. So Fusion finished the season with a 1-2 record in his fights, and his strength of schedule being 6-2. He beat the 2-1 Cobalt, he lost to the 2-0 Copperhead, and he lost to the 2-1 Ice Wave. Again, every bot there made the tournament. There are not many bots whose strength of schedule features 3 bots that made the tournament. In fact, I'm going to confirm real quick. There's those 2, Endgame, Sawblaze, and that's it. 4 bots had all of their opponents make the tournament. And obviously this would change if you take Mammoth and put him in over Hijinks, then his total goes down to 2. So is it such a crazy idea to suggest that Mammoth, having beaten Hijinks, remember, gets into the tournament over them, and, I don't know, throw him in a play-in match. Knock Scorpios out of the 32nd seed and put Mammoth in there. Give Scorpios a spot higher. And then, it. Throw Fusion in there against Hydra. Everyone wants to see it anyway. You might as well do it. So there's my bold suggestion. You either like it or you don't, but you can choose either taking Mammoth and Fusion in over Valkyrie and Hijinks, or the weird reshuffle that I did for all of those bottom bots. But that's enough of that. Go ahead and leave your comments for that below. But now let's get into making the bracket predictions. I've been doing some minor dissecting of this, trying my absolute hardest to get this correct. Last year wasn't the best, and I want to do better. So here we go. Let's start making some predictions. First off, the play-in for Scorpios and Malice. I like both bots. I just feel like Scorpios is going to have a strong enough plow, and Malice will eventually break that weapon. So Scorpios wins that for me. That would lead to Endgame and Scorpios facing off in the round of 32, and Endgame's gonna win that fight. I'm fairly confident they're gonna use some sort of long fork contraption and just beat the crap out of Scorpios until the 3 minutes ends, because I don't know if Scorpios is gonna die. Then we go into the 16 versus the 17, Minotaur versus Bloodsport, and rightly so they're at 16th and 17th because I cannot figure out who I like in this match. On one hand, Bloodsport is good with the driving, they're very quick, and I could see them getting a lot of good side shots on Minotaur. On the other hand, Bloodsport has to turn that weapon off very often. They just came off a fight where they couldn't finish off Claw Viper, and Minotaur could catch them when they're waiting for the weapon to spin back up. So I think I'm gonna go with Minotaur. It's tight, and I like both bots in both teams, but someone's gotta lose. Next fight's the 8 versus the 25, Copperhead versus Lucky. I'm sorry, Lucky. You've done well this year, but I think Copperhead's gonna rip off a couple wheels. Takes us to the next fight, Glitch versus Witch Doctor. Glitch has been surprisingly good this year, but now they're going up against a very good driver, a very experienced team, and a very deadly bot that I feel like they're gonna struggle with. They might get nervous, they'll make a driving mistake, and Mike's gonna be all over that, so I'm gonna give Witch Doctor the victory. That takes us to the next quadrant, which starts off with 4 Sawblaze and 29 Hijinks. Hijinks, man, you got a rough draw, but based on the strength of schedule I was picking at earlier, it's probably Karma coming back. So Sawblaze is gonna probably win that via knockout. Next up then is Hypershock, the 13th seed, and P1, the 20th seed. Why do I feel like Hypershock's gonna screw this up somehow? Why do I have a gut feeling that he just, I don't know, he gets himself flipped, ramping over P1, and then he's upside down and doesn't get a lot of traction, gets pushed in the screws or gets trapped somewhere. The 13 versus 20 is a fight I screwed up last time because I didn't give it enough thought, and it was when Ribbot knocked out Beta. So let's take this opportunity to go bold and say P1. It feels wrong, but I have a feeling. After that, it's number 5 Uppercut and 28 Huge. Part of me wants to say Huge is going to take this, but I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to doubt Uppercut. He's got such a powerful weapon. Maybe he's able to even reach up and hit Huge in the middle. I don't know. I'm not going to play the odds on this one. This one's too tough for me to call. I'm going to go with Uppercut. Final fight on the left side, Shatter versus Riptide, the 12 versus the 21. Riptide's lost their weapon in every fight this season. So I think Shatter is just going to have to play it patient, and eventually that weapon dies out on Riptide. Shatter goes to town. Shatter wins the decision. Starting on the right side, we get the play-in match of Hydra versus Defender. A lot of people have been saying Hydra's going to win this fight, and I'm probably going to agree with them in the end, but my concern is Hydra broke their drive against Glitch by hitting a seam in the floor, which screwed it up. Defender is going to be another bot going for the ground clearance game. So if Hydra, attempting to win ground clearance, does the same thing, he's screwed. It could easily happen, but also it's hard to doubt Hydra. I mean, they looked good in that fight against Glitch until they broke their drive, so maybe Jake just drives a little bit smarter or drives less and just kind of hangs around the middle of the arena. He might be okay. That would then send Hydra off to fight the number 2 seed Ribbot, and Hydra, man, again, it's going to be a ground clearance battle. Ribbot doesn't have a self-righting mechanism. Can he drive inverted? I don't even know. Oh no, he does have a self-righting mechanism.
You're an idiot!
I don't know. A lot of people I think are going to say Hydra in that fight too. I'm going to doubt it. I'm going to say Ribbot takes that. He's gonna find a way to screw him up. Next up, Mad Cat or Black Dragon. Mad Catter's looked pretty good this year, while Black Dragon has looked iffy. I think Mad Catter is gonna find a way to win this. Next up, Blip versus Valkyrie, the 7th versus the 26th. Blip hasn't yet had to face a tough spinner that lasts the fight because Lockjaw's weapon died early. Valkyrie, being an undercutter, worries me a little bit because, first of all, they're a somewhat durable bot, Valkyrie, and that weapon being so low means Blip's gonna have to hit it to try and get a flip. Does his system break? Is he screwed from there on out? Maybe. It's tough. It's really, really tough. I'm gonna say this is another fight where it's easy to pick the better seed and the bot with a better record. So let's go bold and say Valkyrie, who I don't even think maybe should be in the tournament, but let's go bold. F it. That brings up the 10 versus 23, Jackpot Tombstone. Originally, I wanted to say Tombstone until I was reminded that Jackpot has a decent wedge for horizontals. I am really second guessing myself on this fight because I still want to say Tombstone, but we know how powerful that Jackpot weapon is. I'm going to go with Jackpot between the combination of a very good vertical spinner and a solid enough wedge. Tombstone seems to be really susceptible to those lately, so take it, Jackpot. Final quad starts off with Whiplash Ice Wave. No question Whiplash is going to win this fight. They're not going to run the spinner. They're going to have a little bit of extra armor. Ice Wave's weapon's going to clonk out early. Next fight, Cobalt Yeti, the 14th versus the 19th. I am a little more impressed after 3 fights with Cobalt than I am with Yeti. By a little bit. And maybe that's why they're so close in seeds, because they have had similar seasons. I'm going to go with Cobalt, but it's not by much. Next fight, Rotator Captain Shredderator. We saw this last year in Bounty Hunters, if I'm not mistaken, and Rotator kicked his ass. I think he's going to do it again. And then the final round of 32 fight is Tantrum and Gigabyte, and Tantrum's got a solid wedge that Gigabyte's not going to like. I think Gigabyte will eventually break. Tantrum's a pretty durable bot, so we're going to go with Tantrum. And now we go for the round of 16, Endgame and Minotaur. I don't see Minotaur being strong enough to handle Endgame's attacks, so I'm going to go with the champ. Copperhead versus Witch Doctor then. Ooh, that's a real tough one. Whose weapon will die first? Witch Doctor's has already died once this season. So I think I'm going to go with Copperhead. Copperhead with the bigger weapon has more surface area to hit Witch Doctor. It's going to be a tight fight, though. It's going to be a lot of fun. Sawblaze versus P1. Sawblaze is going to eat P1 up for breakfast, and it's not even going to be close. Uppercut versus Shatter. If this happens, that would be pretty rough. I gotta say Uppercut wins. Ribbot versus Mad Catter will be very intriguing if it happens. It's going to be a battle of ground clearance and who has the stronger weapon. I think Ribbot could pull it off. I think. It would be pretty tight. But they've looked a little bit better to me, overall, this season and last season, so I'm gonna go with them. Valkyrie versus Jackpot. Well, we know Jackpot's got the horizontal wedge that he probably beats Tombstone with, so now Valkyrie is getting upended by a wedge and a strong vertical spinner. Jackpot could take it, you know. Whiplash versus Cobalt. Oof. I mean, my brain tells me Whiplash, but something feels fishy about this fight. Something tells me Cobalt might sneak this. Maybe Whiplash hits a seam in the floor and exposes an opening and takes too much damage from like one huge hit. I need to be bold with some of these picks because that's how you get good brackets. You need to be able to call your shots correctly. I'm gonna go Cobalt. To conclude the round of 16, it's Rotator versus Tantrum, which is another tough one because at times I've doubted Rotator in fights where he's then won, and it's usually because of good driving and very good forks. Can his forks get under Tantrum? I want to say Rotator. I want to say don't doubt the forks this time, Nick, because he always proves me wrong with them. He's going to get under Tantrum, he's going to cause some damage. Maybe it doesn't knock him out, because Tantrum's a tough little bugger, but he gets the win regardless. And that brings us, ladies and gentlemen, to the quarterfinals where we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 4.5, 5.5, 6.5 vertical spinners based on my list here. Rotator's the only one, and Ribbot's the half. So Endgame versus Copperhead. I'm actually worried for Endgame if this is a possibility. He shouldn't use forks in this fight because if he does, Copperhead's gonna rip them up. Endgame's not getting underneath him, Copperhead eventually wins the fight. So if he doesn't use forks, it's straight weapon to weapon. Shit. It's so easy to pick the #1 defending champion Endgame. I'm gonna say Endgame. It doesn't feel right. But again, this fight might not even happen because Witch Doctor could beat Copperhead, and I'm just thinking over all this for nothing. So let's go ahead and say Endgame and make it easy, I guess. Sawblaze versus Uppercut, which would be a rematch, of course. But would it go the same as last time? Because Sawblaze left himself heavily exposed. I don't think Jameson will make the same mistake twice. But how would it go? How would such a rematch go? Because it's going to be difficult for Sawblaze to corral Uppercut and be able to drop the hammer down safely. But I feel like if he does, he can take out Uppercut's susceptible drive and win the fight that way. So maybe this is a bold prediction, but I'm gonna go Sawblaze. Ribbot versus Jackpot. I assume Ribbot goes with the vertical spinner and just matches up with him. And I think Ribbot is a little bit better driven, so I think he will eventually get the right opening that wins him the fight. I can already tell you right now, this is not at all how this is going to go, because I've got the 1, the 2, and the 4 making the semifinals. That's some bullshit. I can tell you that right now. You know what? Because of that, I'm actually going to switch Endgame out and put Copperhead, just to make this a little less predictable and more fun. How about it? Cobalt versus Rotator. We were just talking about Rotator and his forks being good and getting under a lot of things and me doubting them. But doesn't Cobalt have a set of forks that would probably counter Rotator's well? Kind of like 2 big forks that can go right in between the 3 and maybe he gets under Rotator and hits him. Also, it's just not a good looking matchup for Rotator because it's a strong wedge and a vertical spinner. If Rotator takes the wrong hit, he could get sent flying and have a lot of damage caused to him. I am going to say Cobalt. Semifinals. Copperhead and Sawblaze. Because I'm switching the Copperhead just to make this a little, bit varied. I would say Sawblaze. I think he can easily corral Copperhead, and when he ends up bringing down the hammer saw, if he can line it up right on a wheel chain, it's game over. Ribbot versus Cobalt. So Ribbot would surely have to go with the vertical spinner here against Cobalt. It will be a battle of wedgelets. It'll be a battle of who's got the stronger weapon. But fucking Man, this is tough now. I'm really splitting hairs, and it sucks because we don't know if this fight actually happens or not. Like, I'm sitting here thinking, oh, what happens if this? What happens if this? These two may never cross paths. Ribbot may lose to Hydra. Cobalt may lose to Whiplash. We don't know. I'll take the slightly more experienced Matt Maxim and Cobalt to beat Ribbot. Don't know if it's right. That means my final would be the Battle of Black and Green, Sawblaze versus Cobalt. We run into another situation where it's about forks and wedges and who wins that crucial battle. Maybe Jameson makes another driving mistake like he did against Endgame because he's a little too nervous. Cobalt just kind of sits and waits, pops off a wheel, does some huge ass damage. Cobalt for the nut? That's a bold prediction, isn't it? It's a very bold prediction. But you know what? This bracket started to get more and more bold as we went on, so screw it. I'm writing Cobalt's name down as my champion for BattleBots 2021-2022. I'm already looking at this bracket. I felt good at the start, and as we got into deeper rounds, I felt less and less confident, so we shall see. But that is all for this video. Thank you for watching. If you're new here, you should definitely subscribe because we do a lot of other cool things with BattleBots, like the BattleBots Prediction Series and the BattleBots Reborn Cup Series, which is also happening right now, if you didn't know. If you liked this video, let me know with a like on it so that I know to do more breakdown videos like this. Also, after you've subscribed, or if you're already subscribed, you should definitely hit the bell icon for notifications because YouTube is terrible at telling you when videos actually come out. Don't forget, too, to comment on this video with your predictions. Let me know if I was too bold in some areas or not bold enough in other areas. And let me know what ideas you absolutely hated, because I'm sure there's one or two out there that didn't like one or two things in the video. Check out our Twitch, check out our Patreon, links in the description below. Thank you for watching. See you soon.